We really do remember that Jack Ma was one of the first targets of this regulatory crackdown, right? And it eventuated in this reorganization within Alibaba and its sprawling operations. Are we seeing that play out on the bottom line now?
Yeah, thanks for being on your show. There are several puts and takes on the quarter, but overall outlook is actually stabilizing compared to the last couple quarters. If you look at the negative side, right, advertising and commission revenue grew about 14% year over year. That's about 3 points below consensus, and this is mainly due to some of the weaknesses that in demand that we saw in April and May prior to the big ramp up on June promotion. And they also continue to support merchant by reducing their logistic costs. But if you look at the positive side, they are making progress on some of the new investments they're making. On Taobao Deals, which is a new app that's focusing on direct supplier to consumer model for lower tier markets, that gained about 10% user growth quarter over quarter. At the same time, community buying business model, also in lower tier city, GMV grow 200% year over year. And on the regulatory front, management reaffirmed their focus on complying key policies such as antitrust. They're doing an open platform to allow competitors to be on their platform, and data security at this point in time. So in conclusion, outlook is actually stabilizing over the last few quarters. Over the last couple of quarters, we saw some downward earnings revision because of investments.
So Eric Jing has promised staff and shareholders that an IPO will eventually happen. What does that valuation look like landing now?
Yeah, Ant Financial, it's kind of hard to assess at this point in time because Ant itself is still going through a restructuring. And the last thing that we saw from the press is that they have set up a separate consumer financing company, right? And they have reestablished a credit standard that's similar to commercial banks. Obviously, maybe that'll curb some of the growth in consumer financing. We need to look at the latest data in order to assess where the valuation lie. But my assessment is probably the Ant Financial restructuring will be done by year end, and we'll kind of go from there.
So when it comes to Alibaba itself, we have seen the stock underperform really in the last few months, with analysts at least bullish in about 4 years or so, as this GTV chart on the Bloomberg shows, double-digit losses for the month of July. When can we expect some upside for the stock?
Yeah, if you look at valuation, clearly it's come down quite a bit, right? And I think most of the people who look at Alibaba company as a whole, they use some of the parts. And if you look at the current stock price under 200, the core e-commerce business is actually trading about maybe 6 times FY23 EBITDA. This is versus normal valuation of low teens to mid-teens. So we took a substantial hit in terms of valuation already because of regulatory risk. So at this point in time, I think a lot of risk coming from policy specifically is more or less baked into the stock at this point.
One of those risks, as you mentioned, the open platform initiative, where you have other companies also having their apps in Alibaba's platform and vice versa. When it comes to the big two giants like Alibaba and Tencent, who benefits from this new initiative from Beijing?
Right. I think the whole purpose is to allow, a more equal competitive playing field, a lot of smaller competitors in general, because I think what government really want to foster is to enable maybe a lot of smaller players in the e-commerce place to be able to acquire customers in a more economic way. So from that perspective, we're going to see probably some of the more smaller players come into these large platforms, whether it's Tencent or Alibaba, and to be enabled to generate business on their platform. I think from that perspective, it's benefiting everybody, right? For Baba to bring competitors onto a platform, which will allow their consumers to actually to be able to be exposed to more different products. I think at the end of the day, it could be a win-win situation for us.